bankrupt. I've made mistakes. All kinds of stuff happen. But I've I've had good carriers over the years. I've always made money since day one. I've made money because I've been willing to work, and I think that's the secret. You got to be willing to get out there and put the miles in. But if you're willing to do that, I've had great equipment. I've never driven anything over. Once I got to a point, nothing was over 3-4 years old at the most, usually 2. Just because they kept giving you a new one because I kept taking care of their truck. And so I want people to know that because I hear people going. I was talking to a guy today. Oh, people don't want to come in. They don't want to be gone for 4 days. I go, okay, so you're not in trucking at this event I was at. I go, you're not in trucking. You're here at a conference for 3 days. So it doesn't matter what industry you're in. You're going away for a week,
Yeah.
depending on your job, right? So I think that's a sad excuse we all use of going away, and the young people think, well, I'll come in here and I want to be home with my kids. You don't have to be with your kids every minute of the day to have quality time with your kids. You got to spend the time when you do see them. You make sure that's priority. But my kids are okay. They're 30 and married. They're all alive, right? So,
Yeah. That is a pet peeve of mine in the industry. Actually, um, I'm going to sound like an old school guy here when I say this. I come from the old school world where you have to start at the bottom,
yeah,
and you work your way up every rung of that ladder to get where you're at, where I'm at, where you're at,
yeah.
where everybody's at. You just don't start at the top, and that's one thing that I've really noticed here lately is people think they can come into the industry and they can get that cushy job or that top dollar job right off the get go.
Yeah.
I wish it was that way, but you gotta earn your stripes. This is an industry you got to earn your stripes, and that comes from every year's experience.
Yeah, are they talking about that in the States? Because you've probably heard of the Humboldt crash where the truck driver hit the
Yes.
bus and killed 16. Okay,
Mhm.
so he just got charged. I feel bad for this guy. He drove for I don't know 3 weeks or a month or something. He's 29 years old and he's going to spend at least the next 10 years in jail, which he should. And that's what he did is. But I don't think he went to work to kill anybody that day. He made a lot of mistakes. The carrier made a lot of mistakes, and the carrier has not been taken through the coals on the media like this guy has. So I feel bad for the driver. I think he was probably trying to do the job, maybe incorrectly, but that's inexperience. I think a lot of it. But we've had that same issue here. So we're bringing in some regulations are coming in now across Canada. We already have them here in Ontario as far as training. You have to take 103 hours and all of that. But now they're bringing it in across Canada. But yeah, I started in a straight truck, man, and then I started humping furniture, then a straight truck, and then tractor trailer, a little single axle gas job, then a diesel highway unit, and I just kept going up and up and up. And they're missing that today, and you can see that's why we're having so many incidents and accidents, and they're throwing them through a 5-week course or whatever, and it's done, right?
Well, let me ask you this: when you came in the industry, what was your training like? Did you go through a school? Did you go through a company, get your CDL? How did it progress for you?
For me, I started humping furniture, so I was just a helper. And I noticed that you can drive these. I knew nothing about the trucking industry. So I'm 17 years old. I started humping furniture. At 18, I'd gotten to talk to the guys, and they said, "Hey, why don't you go for your D license?" So I went and got. You just had to write it and drive. It wasn't really that big a deal back then. There was no training schools. There might have been one or two. They were $5,000. I didn't have $5,000 at 17. To barely have $5,000 today. so I went, but then I learned off the guys. I drove straight truck probably for 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years. Then got, well, no, it wasn't that long because I had my A license when I was 21. So my commercial one. So 3 years maybe I drove straight truck. Then I learned at the same moving company there was one tractor trailer guy. It was a GMC gas job, single axle, little 5-speed thing. And they let me take it out on weekends to practice. And the driver there showed me the ropes. And his dad was a truck driver as well. And so he showed me the ropes. So I had training with one guy. But then when his dad would take time off, we would take his dad's highway unit because his dad ran Florida for North American Van Lines. So we would take his rig and go deliver a load. So my first experience was the border was when they tore our trailer apart. We were there 3 a.m. for 6 hours. having to reload this trailer because customs. That was my very first experience crossing the border as a commercial driver. And I think my next trip was New York City. Like take him to all the bad places first, right? But
Hmm.
it didn't deter me. I learned from those, but he was really good at saying, "Here's what you did." And then we actually bought a truck together, him and I, and that's when I was an owner operator for a couple of years, and then I went into the freight side after that. But and ever since then, I just kind of kept progressing. But I've worked for good carriers. But yeah, it's on the job training, but it wasn't formalized, and now they're trying to do mentorships here, and it's different again. I had a mentor. I didn't. He was my mentor now. I didn't know that at the time. He was just somebody I got along with. He was willing to show me the ropes, and before you know it, I'm a tractor trailer driver. My parents didn't know anything about trucking.
Yeah, that's me. I'm not a third generation, second generation. I was a support manager at Walmart before I became a truck driver. That was my experience with trucks, was unloading them.
Yeah,
But the guy that taught me how to drive, he's my best friend. I mean, I didn't know him from Adam from Eve or anything, but we still talk to this day. And the funny thing is, I actually got him a job at my prior company, and I'm the one who trained him.
right.
So I look at the industry and with especially the training standards, and I'm always kind of brought back a little bit because I remember how I was trained, which really wasn't trained. Um, I was taught how to do the job, but I have an unpopular belief in this. You can train all you want, but until you get out there and do it, you're not